Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, the first of multiple rainfall events has happened here over the last 24 hours, and I'd like to show it to you on radar. So this is a composite image or a mosaic image across the country, and last night the severe storms that went through parts of Nebraska did put down some very strong winds. Then we saw in the early morning hours the same storms moving across parts of southern Iowa, getting northern Missouri, and then it crossed the Mississippi River and spread into Illinois. Meanwhile, to the north of that, complex of storms moved over parts of Lake Michigan, into lower Michigan, spreading rainfall across this area. And as the day wore on, we saw our normal sea breeze convection down here to the south, and we're going to watch, if you just watch as I go back and forth here, the next event is taking shape in the mountains right now. So you can see a lot of scattered convection in the mountains, but can you see the circulation right in through here? We're going to talk about that again in just a few moments. Okay, from here, let's just get to the latest drought monitor update because this updated this morning. So this is the June 24th release. And what's critical about this upcoming forecast is that there's a section of extremely dry land that's expected to get rainfall. And it's this area right in through here. And so we're going to watch to see what kind of improvements we see over the coming days, especially inside of that area I just drew. Now, outside of that, our chances are a bit more limited. And I'll explain to you what I'm talking about here in just a few moments. But the main takeaway point here is that drought is still extremely expansive across the West and has been getting worse in those areas. Up to this point in June, you know how I love to show these maps. This is the June 1st through June 24th total precip ranks by climate district. So it reminds us that before we go into this, what will be a wetter time period in parts of the central United States and the western and central Corn Belt, that up to this point it had been exceptionally dry. But some recent rainfall through this area has helped improve these things. And the good news is parts of the Mid-South over to the Carolinas, which have been very wet this month, are going to get an extended time period of relatively drier conditions, but also not with extreme heat. And so that's going to be good. Also, this part of the Cotton Belt here is going to get a bit of a drink as well out of this. Over the last 14 days, you can see that that section of the country, there are pockets in here that have not measured precipitation in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and also pockets of Nebraska. Also notice, too, this part into Arkansas, which had those flooding rains earlier in the month, has been dry lately. Same thing for this part of Missouri, very, very dry. But what we're going to notice here is going to be a major change in this map as we go through our next 7 days. So I wanted to show it to you now so that we can take a look at it later. This is another map that's going to change considerably. It's our top 16 inches of soil moisture in terms of percentile. And there are areas that need not just one or two big events, but one or two big events every 2 weeks to really revive their soil. And we're going to put together a forecast to see if something like that is going to happen in some of these driest pockets into this area. But again, where our soils are saturated farther to the south, we're going to see some relief here from the heavier rainfall in the near term. Unfortunately, where this is all going to begin and where it will be, I think, most extreme in this pattern is going to be what's going on in the Pacific Northwest up into parts of British Columbia. And that would be because this is going to be the flow by the time we get into this weekend. It's highly amplified jet stream flow, and there's a very large ridge that is going to be sitting right on top of British Columbia into Washington State. And downstream of it, there's another ridge in the flow here, and in between, some pretty strong flow right there across the midsection of the United States. And it'll be under this that we're going to see a frontal boundary kind of just sit and very slowly move, and that's going to be the source of a lot of the lift in the atmosphere. This entire time the Gulf is wide open. Nothing is shutting down that Gulf moisture. So let's kind of put this together. I'm going to show you a string of images here that I hope illustrate this. Now, when we run the models in an ensemble mode, for example, the European, it's run 51 separate times. So we can use all 50 of those runs and then their forecast precipitation to then give us an idea on how many of those forecast model runs produced a certain amount of rainfall. What you can do with that then is you can say over a certain time period, in this case 1 week or 168 hours, what was the probability of getting total QPF, that stands for quantitative precipitation forecast, total rainfall, less than 1/2 inch. So we're going to look at 3 of these maps, and this is the first one. And what I wanted to point out to you was that area that I mentioned was going to be drier in through here. Low probability of getting more than 1/2 inch of rainfall. Same thing, though, unfortunately, for this area. And what you see, a high probability of getting less than 1/2 inch. And it's the same thing for this area as well. Now, we don't expect it in the west, but notice, too, how much drier than normal the Canadian prairie is going to be. Now, given that, let's flip this over and show you the probability of getting more than an inch. Okay, so that's what this is showing. So you do notice, looking at the color bar, 80 to 100%, there's a broad sector in through here where we are expecting at least an inch of rainfall, and we can just keep stepping it up. That's the probability of 2 inches, and here's the probability of 4 inches. And that is going to be the region over which we're going to watch these stalled out frontal boundaries continue to produce precipitation. Now, there's been a lot of model run to model run variability there, and I will address that in a few moments. But I wanted you to see these kind of 4 maps put together here so we can hone in on what we really need to be watching. So this is the latest from the European model. In fact, let me update that. Sorry, we should have just had the 12Z run. There it is. There's the 12Z run that just came in. And we can see where the European model is putting the heaviest corridor of precipitation in through here. All right. Could some of these total precip numbers come out to be greater than 4 to 6 plus inches? It could happen, but a lot of this is going to be thunderstorm driven. So just remember that locally there could be some heavier rain. How much widespread heavy rainfall do we get will be something we'll have to wait and observe as the time goes on. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you that if this is the 12Z run, what did the previous runs look like? So I created this figure, and I'll start showing it to you more often now. It's the change. We call this dProg dt, the change in the prognosis over time. And I'm just comparing the same 7-day time period from the 0Z run today to the 12Z run. So there's just 12 hours separating this. And we're looking for distinct changes. Now, a couple of things, big things to take note of. Earlier today, the 0Z run put more rainfall here and here. And the 12Z run is now wetter there. Do you see that shift? It is a southeast shift of the boundary. But at the same time, better chances of rain through the Dakotas. And that is a fantastic trend we're going to have to continue to watch. But outside of that, the main thing to watch is right in through here. Now, just a reminder, this is when we look at the 12Z run, this would be looking at the next 7 days total precipitation anomaly. So the previous map was showing you difference for underrun. This is just the total precip anomalies through the next 7 days. And it highlights that same corridor. Now, let's do the same thing with the GFS. This is the 12Z GFS run. And you do notice some differences, right? I mean, if I can just go back, that's the 12Z Euro. This is the 12Z GFS. But I'd like to do the same treatment that we did to the European model. And let's just go look here. This is the 7-day total precip change comparing the 0Z run today to the 12Z. Now, what we don't see in the GFS is a very distinct shift. One area that I'm extremely concerned about, which is this area and through here, is drier now in the latest run of the GFS. In other words, we've shifted a little bit farther to the south, but it's also backed off on amounts, for example, through parts of Missouri and Illinois, and it's very splotchy around other areas. Whereas, just as a reminder, the shift in the European is quite a bit more, I would just say, more consistent. Now from there, let's also go look at what the GFS 12Z 7-day precip anomaly map looks like. And it just kind of continues to tell that story. But the GFS is drier in this area and in the Dakotas than the European is at this stage. The European brought better rainfall into these areas than the GFS did. I want to watch this trend very carefully over the coming days. And when you get my morning reports, we're going to be sure to continue to talk about that, okay? So from here, let's just take a look at what we're watching the next couple of days. This is Storm Prediction Center's latest update this afternoon. And this is where we're going to watch for some severe storms tonight. And you can see a very large area highlighted in through here where we've built in the instability and we have the trigger to put out some strong storms. The primary threat here is going to be strong straight line winds and hail. Then tomorrow, you can see that it shifts just a little bit farther to the south, but that will be the main area. Now, if you watch these SPC update maps, you will see that it's not just me that is struggling with the pattern. They will change and alter these maps multiple times a day. This is a very, very challenging pattern to understand. And maybe that's best seen by just showing you our high-res NAM model. This is its prediction of what the radar will look like over the next 60 hours. So as I play this forward, okay, so this is through this afternoon, getting into this evening, you see the next big cluster of storms possibly coming through Kansas City, Missouri tonight. And then does that push through Illinois? Certainly. Could there be scattered showers here in the Dakotas coming on the northern side of that wave I mentioned? Yes. And this is through tomorrow morning, and then let's play through midday tomorrow. And watch again. This is the area we're going to watch for the potential for strong and severe storms through Friday night and then into Saturday. And so you do notice there's a lot of convection. In fact, maybe it would be useful if I just went back and showed you the whole thing playing forward. And will this be an exact representation of what will happen over the next 60 hours? No, it is not. We will see quite a bit of shifting around of these thunderstorms because once they form, they tend to continue to develop on their own outflow, and that is not something that can be well resolved in these models. So we're just using this as a reference. The thing I want to watch, though, is the system that comes out here and by Saturday sits here and spins, because that will be the system that tells me how much rainfall gets into this area. And that's an area we're watching carefully for right now. All right. From there, why don't we do our double model comparison? Let's shrink this up so it fits. There we go. We've got the GFS 12Z on the left and the European 12Z on the right. And as we play it forward, we've already seen through Friday and now into Saturday morning. And both models are going to continue to show the same thing. And that is high pressure that's almost off the screen here on each side, and a wide open Gulf of Mexico on a stalled out boundary with a huge ridge going here. That's just going to be the pattern for a while. So here's Saturday afternoon and evening. Now getting into Sunday morning, afternoon and evening. See it in both models. There's the front. You'll see scattered convection coming in like this. Watch. If we go kind of into the overnight hours and then into Monday, this is Monday afternoon, Monday evening. It's all just funneling into that frontal boundary here. And we can see the scattered storms on the backside. It's really resolved in both models here. As we then go from Monday evening into Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon and evening, and then going here into Wednesday morning, afternoon, and evening, you can see that they both hang on to virtually the same pattern with this precipitation. And that gets us out almost a week here. Let's keep going. This would be Thursday morning, afternoon, and evening of next week on July the 1st. And as we keep playing this out, the models are in very good agreement. I mean, just slowly moving that boundary in this direction. See it? It's in both models. So this is getting us all the way out to July, the 2nd, and even out here into the 3rd. Now, you normally hear me say, wow, the models have really diverged by the time we get out to the day 8 or 9 time period, but not in this case. Frontal boundaries here, something similar there. I'm quite impressed with how much they agree. The total precip amounts are very different, and that's inherent in the model differences, but the pattern is quite similar, and that's what I wanted to point out to you here. Now, beyond that, let's just watch how this pattern sets up. Into the weekend, there's the huge ridge. And yes, it does appear to be a bit like an omega pattern, and those tend to get blocked, which means the flow goes more north-south than west-east. And that means this trough that you see right here, which is sitting on that frontal boundary, here's Sunday. Watch, I'll go into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it's still sitting somewhere in there. This is all the way up to Thursday morning. So when does it go away? Maybe not until the 3rd or 4th of July. That's the 4th of July. So the ridge is broadened out. There's still a trough sitting somewhere in here. And then after that's when the shift begins to happen. And we've been talking about this now for a few videos. It appears that around July 5th or 6th, we're going to start to see a change in the pattern, and both the GFS and the European suggested, where we replace the trough that had been over the Aleutian Islands with a ridge. So we end up getting a ridge there, we get a ridge in through here, and a ridge there. And that's that kind of triple ridge pattern that we can get in summer. And what ends up happening is the flow drops into what we call the negative P&A on the west coast, runs up over a ridge here. We tend to get downstream ridge riders in this area, and then it builds back into a ridge here. But in this pattern, there is nothing stopping the Gulf of Mexico moisture transport. So in addition to the ridge-riding storms, which tend to form farther to the east, leaving the Canadian Prairie and the Dakotas and possibly Minnesota a bit drier, it'll be wet everywhere to the south and east of there if that pattern sets up. So I showed you the GFS, but I'm telling you that same idea is in the European, and that's why we'll look at the European like this. So my concern is how far to the east do we get this dry weather in through here? Because this is an area that needs a lot of thunderstorm activity And it appears that that triple ridge pattern getting into week 2 is going to kind of starve this area for moisture and produce a lot more storms farther to the south here. Now, I'm going to remind you of something. Going back 2 weeks ago and looking at the week 2 forecast for what we've got right now, the European model and the GFS had the pattern. They did a very good job with that. There is one other thing I want you to be watching as we look out over the next couple of weeks before I talk about temperatures, and it's actually what's going on right here's the sunset today off of the west coast of Africa. Now you'll notice it looks a little grainy over here. This is the very edge of GOES 16 or GOES East in its view, so the pixels get a little bit elongated, but we're watching this. This is a tropical wave, what we call an easterly wave coming off of Africa. And you can see it's kind of sucking in quite a bit of dusty air, but the National Hurricane Center is giving that a 40% chance of development over the next 5 days, which means as we get into next week, we need to be keeping an eye on what happens to this as it moves toward the Lesser Antilles. I don't believe the Caribbean is a favorable environment for development right now, but we'll watch that carefully. This system here has a 10% chance of developing. Now from there, I would like to show you that we are watching another system. Let's click on it here. And this is Japan. And what I'm concerned about here is as this system pulls to the north, does it eventually does it possibly get curled up over Alaska? Some of the more broader runs here do show that that is a possibility. And what I'll be watching for is out there like day 10 to 15. If this does come in here, does it have a chance at eroding the ridge that's going to set up there? Do you remember I showed you the ridge a few moments ago? If that occurs, then that could really offset this pattern. And we're in that time of year where tropical systems have the ability to do that. So let's watch it very carefully, okay? That gets us through 2 weeks on Precip. Let's do temperature, then we'll look longer term. Now, of course, one of the big stories we've been covering is the extreme heat in the Northwest. But before we get there, today was extremely hot in the Central Plains. And as we play forward into Friday, watch the cooler air come down here this weekend and replace all this heat, while much above average temperatures on Saturday, here we go, into Sunday build into the Pacific Northwest. So we're cooling all this down. A lot of cloud cover, and there's a low, remember, that comes out here. But if you look in the Pacific Northwest, this is, this is possibly record-setting heat. Like I'm not talking about daily records. This might be all-time record-setting heat in this area, and it lasts into next week. That's Monday's high temperatures, and then into Tuesday and next Wednesday. So this is a multi-day, very long, big ridge, long duration event here, and we're cooler downstream of it through the next 7 days. Looking out there at the day 5 through 10 pattern, let's shrink that up once. There we go. We can see that area might be anywhere 10 to 30 degrees above average at times. And the cooler air that pulls down into this downstream of it, we're talking 8, 9, 10 degrees cooler than normal in this area. So what a very dynamic pattern we're looking at here. And it extends out there all the way to day 15, which gets us, pretty far to the month of July here. So it seems to be the pattern we're going to be witnessing for a short while. Now, what I'd like to do next is I'd like to stretch this out a little bit. And let's just take a look here at the European weeklies. Okay, good. And this is now what the month of July is currently looking like. Now, my report tomorrow, I'll give you the brand new updates on these. But this is the area that the models continue to push over toward drier conditions. One thing that these models refuse to do, take a look at this. This is the 30-day pressure anomaly. Oh, good. It actually just updated. We got the brand new data, so we'll go back and look at it. Ready? Here's the high pressure cell, and you notice that the models are not pushing that high close to the U.S. shore. And as a result, we just get fed lots of moisture out of the south from this. And that's why we now go back and see the brand new data that just got released. There it is. Look at the moisture that is expected to come into this area. Now, what again will be the challenge is finding that cutoff right there. Because you notice that even in the latest updates, this is an area that continues to show dry. And this is a consequence of the way this pattern has been set up and seems to stay as we move forward. Let's now go look at the same 30-day time period. Again, this gets us out through the month of July, and let's look at those temperature anomalies. With all of that rain and cloud cover you saw in there, we end up having near normal to cooler than normal temperatures. And the heat is on the northern side of this compared to normal. So that was some really consistent behavior there in the European extended. So that's a good thing to see if we're going to trust the model out that far. I got asked a great question the other day, and the question was about, well, are these ocean temperatures changing, and what does that mean? Well, yes, they are. So right in here, we still have the cooler pattern. That's, again, associated with the negative Pacific meridional mode and the negative PDO, and it does extend into the southern hemisphere, and we've lately seen some warmer water coming up here. That is not associated with return of El Nino, okay? But these ocean temperature patterns, as they have got to this point, were more about the setup for summer. From this point forward, we have to watch other factors in summer versus the ocean temperatures in a direct correlation with our weather patterns at any given time. So think about the ocean temperature analysis we've been doing since winter as telling us what to watch out for this summer. And it's been that central North America drought risk, right? That's what we've had a lot of talk about. Now, I also want you to notice that the main development region for our hurricane area is still quite warm as well. So from here, let's go take a look at how much things have changed lately. We, a week ago, saw quite a bit of warm water here, and now all of a sudden it's faded back, and we've got cooler water emerging again. And that's just a part of the normal volatility. But this will be the area that I'm going to keep an eye on because it has continued to show a warming trend over the last, not just week, but over the last couple of weeks. And we're going to start to watch hurricanes come through here. Now, what I want to finish with is I want to tell you the most important things that I am watching. The first is atmospheric angular momentum. Now, I know these graphs are a bit complicated to look at, but what I want you to think about is this. When the angular momentum is high, okay, when it's high, you have more zonal flow, west to east, a more active jet stream, better chances of repeated systems moving across wherever the regions are that's got high values. So back in like April, as an example. Right now, the area I'm circling here is 30 degrees north to 60 degrees north. We call this the polar jet stream level. And we don't see a strong value here. Globally, it's been dropping off, and that's because we've seen in the northern hemisphere a weakening. Now, I'm just going to tell you something I'm going to watch out for. If these values continue to drop, and the drop is happening here, that is a signal that we're going to go to a blocked weather pattern. And a blocked weather pattern in summer is never good. It's always either too wet someplace and too dry another, and it gets stuck there. So will you watch that with me? That's critical. The other thing has to do with the MJO. Now, the MJO right now is sitting over here in phase 1 and phase 8. So that would be basically near Africa. The long-range European suggests that it's going to, very low amplitude, come through phase 2, into phase 3, 4, and 5. There is some semblance of the forecast doing this. And if it does that, I'm most concerned if it gets stuck over here in phase 5. And the reason why is because historically, if it gets stuck in phase 5 in the month of July, that tends to produce a ridge here, a ridge there, and a ridge there. Now remember, each phase as it transitions gives us a different look. So what I'm proposing to you here is, if it gets stuck in phase 5, we tend to find a triple ridge pattern from the Aleutian Islands to the, basically sitting over Minnesota and then in the North Atlantic. And my concern at that point would be what this would do to the region that is already in exceptional drought. Now, you know that the model is pushing it there because when we come back to this, we do see that that area is showing up dry. The one wild card, the open Gulf of Mexico. And that's what we're going to have to watch most carefully as we work our way through this next 30 to 45 days. So now you know what I'll be paying close attention to, and I hope that kind of provides some insight here. And I also hope some of the new graphics when we do the model comparison and then the dProg DT shows you kind of some trends that we've witnessed here. So we'll stop it there. I appreciate your attention. I hope you all have a good rest of your week and weekend, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.